All right, I want to welcome everyone to this week's meeting of the Clyde Sukeforth chapter of SABR. I am Bruce McClure, the chapter chair, and we always hold our meetings in conjunction with the Gardner-Waterman chapter of SABR in Vermont, Dr. Clayton Truder, chair. Now, traditionally, we do this weekly when she's here, so I am immediately going to Joanne Hulbert, who has a poem for us tonight. Joanne, you're up.
Yes. Okay. Now, the thing is, in honor of Cassidy and all, this poem comes out of my copious poem files that I've been keeping for, nearly 20 years. Now, just to let her know that about 15 years ago, I did bring in a CD and I gave it, I gave it to poor Tim Wiles, and he was really excited. It's not as big as I have it now. Anyway, he put it into the computer there in the office, and he blew the whole system up. So he had to call tech to come and fix whatever we did wrong. But anyway, so I won't put it on a CD again. But I will warn you that it's possible that I might put it on a USB drive for you to play with. It's something that I've been collecting for 20 years. The particular file that I took this particular poem out, apropos to the subject, the Hot Stove League in Winter Poems. And in that file, there's 87 poems to choose from. Now, that's one of my fair to middling ones. My players file has, I think I'm approaching 800 or 900 in that file alone. And I haven't taken account lately, but I think I'm almost approaching about maybe 4,000 poems in the whole thing. Somebody has to receive this. So, and I thought of you first. So here's to you. But anyway, here's the one because this one is 110 years ago. And it's done, it's a short poem by Grantland Rice, and we all should stand at attention and bow our heads and take a tip of the hat and everything for anything that Grantland Rice has done. Anyway, here's a poem from back in February of 1915 on this day. Okay, winter indeed. Who says it's winter, though the gales be blowing? Who says it's winter, though the skies be gray? Who says it's winter, though it's sleeting or it's snowing? We know about that around here. And a raw wind ripples in a drive across the way. How can it be winter, though the cold winds caper? How can it be winter, though it's muggy and it's damp, when the fan starts turning over pages in the paper to gather in the gossip from the training camp? We're doing it today, 110 years later. Same thing. Same snow, same wind, same damp, and same training camp. So there you go. All right.
Love it. Thank you, Joanne. I appreciate you. That's fantastic. All right, as all of you know, our first community outreach project will take place in Nashua at historic Holman Stadium on May 30th. The Nashua Silver Knights have given us a table where we're going to perform an outreach meeting and talk to folks about SABR and hold a book swap too. But I am pleased to announce that our group has planned a second one, and this time we're getting called up to AA. We're going to do it again July 25th at the Manchester Fisher Cats game, and the call for volunteers has just gone out. But if you want to attend the game with us or you would like to help us man that table, get in touch with me today, and more details are going to follow in next week's Monday Message newsletter. Now, next up on my agenda this evening is I would like to introduce to everyone a very special guest in the room tonight. Paul Zarecki is here. He is SABR's new External Relations Officer. In this role, he will lead SABR's organizational efforts to partner, collaborate, and engage with industry, educational, and civic institutions. Paul joined SABR after serving for more than 6 years as the Director of Advancement and Strategic Partnerships at the Organization of American Historians. Paul, you out there?
I am. Thank you very much for that, Bruce. I'm really excited to be here tonight and to be with SABR in general. So thanks for welcoming in a bit of an interloper tonight to the meeting.
Bit of an interloper. Anybody with HQ is not an interloper in any of our meetings, my man. It's good to have you here tonight. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for...
Jeff Cohen, where are you? Tell me about your pod, man. What's going on?
Thank you very much. This week on the pod, we have, on Baseball and Barbecue pod, we have the great Ed Randall. He's been in baseball for such a long time, does a great job. He knows everything and everything. And also he has a organization called fansforthecure.org, all about prostate cancer. So please tune in on all your podcast apps and let us know what you think. Thanks.
So Jeff and Len with the Baseball and Barbecue podcast, it is a fantastic listen, especially if you like barbecue, believe it or not. Their baseball guests are fantastic, but you got to listen to these guys talk about barbecue because they love barbecue just about as much. And I've learned a few things, and I've got a few ideas for some rubs and whatnot based off of their stuff. So Jeff, thanks a lot for that. Hey, Dixie, can I ask you a question about what we were talking about in email the other day? You were doing a little bit of research. Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
I can. What do you want to know?
I would like to know a little bit more about the player that you were talking about, because I couldn't guess him. You know me, I'm not a
Yes.
expert on that time period.
Well, this is for the 19th century people in this broadcast tonight. Maybe a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, I got interested in the strikeouts in the 19th century. Only not who threw them, because I knew that. I wanted to know the batters who missed the ball. Because in order to have strikeout pitchers, you've got to have someone striking out. So I went looking for the man who was the strikeout artist of the 19th century, and it didn't take long to find him, but I think his story is amazing. Aside from being the strikeout king of the 19th century. His name is Thomas Brown, and he led the league in strikeouts 5 out of 6 years and was close to leading it for 9 out of 10 years. But his story, aside from his strikeouts, is very interesting, and so I'm working on it for a bio.
Oh, that's fantastic. So that'll come out with the bio project, right?
I would hope so.
Very good. So we'll look for that with the SABR Bio project when that comes out. Thanks, Dix. Appreciate you. Now, I want to let everybody know that the meeting booklet has been updated yet again with a lot of new meetings through, believe it or not, October of this year. We've got a lot of great stuff planned for you, so check that out. You get the link to it each week in the Monday message. All the links in there to get into the meetings are clickable, so you can just read what you want, click, sign up, and you're all set. If you'd like to get on our automatic join the meeting list, let me know. Send me an email directly at bruce@brucemcclurenh.com, and I'll put you on our list. Each week for each of our meetings, you will automatically be enrolled, and you'll automatically get your join the meeting email the day before or the day of the email. So if you'd like to sign up for that, email me directly today. Now, before we get started, I just want to say that the chapter wishes to thank esteemed and longtime members Dixie Tarango for his help in scheduling tonight's guest speaker. Dixie, thank you very much for your help this evening. On to our feature presentation. Here we go. I've been excited about this one. SABR member Cassidy Lent's association with the Giamatti Research Center began in 2012 when she spent 10 weeks there as an intern. After starting her graduate degree in library and information sciences at the University of Albany in 2013, Cassidy rejoined the museum in March of 2014 as the reference librarian and was promoted in November of 2022 to library director. She is also the co-director of the 36th Cooperstown Symposium on Baseball and American Culture, held at the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum on May 28th through 30th this year, and is very well known by baseball researchers across the country for her kindness and generosity in assisting an incredible number of ongoing projects. And hang on, guys, I'm not done yet. Cassidy was also the winner of the 2024 Jerry Malloy Negro League Conference Most Valuable Partner Award, presented annually to a person or persons voted by the organizing committee as most essential to the success of the conference. And she's here with us tonight to shine a light on her position with the Hall, give us a primer on the Cooperstown Symposium, and some information on how she and the Hall can assist you with your baseball research. Cassidy Lent, patron saint of baseball research. Welcome to Northern New England. How are you, my friend?
I am good. Hi, everybody. I know many names and faces of this group, so it's good to see everybody.
This is fantastic. That's great. You're among friends here tonight, as anybody is when they go to a SABR meeting. And we really appreciate you coming out and doing this tonight, even if you are wearing that hat. Oh my
Heck yeah.
goodness!
Like I was saying earlier, I was trying to figure out what hat to wear because it's a little cold in our house, but I found this and I thought, you know what, they're going to be mad and it's okay.
Well, as
The
I
beginning
mentioned
of
to you
spring
before
training, that's what we're doing.
there you go. You know, as I mentioned before we open up the room tonight, I'm an Orioles fan, so it's like whatever. I wore my Hall of Fame shirt for you.
I do see that. I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate
I
that.
did not wear my Hall of Fame shirt. So
I want to start off. Tell our members here tonight, tell them a little bit about you, a little bit about your journey, a little bit about how your fandom, things like that. Can you start us off?
sure. So I grew up about an hour and a half from Cooperstown in a little city called Schenectady. It's right near Albany. And my folks still live there. My sister, my brother also live there. But so coming to Cooperstown was always an annual trip. People ask, what's your first memory of Cooperstown? I don't have one because there isn't one. It just all kind of is blended together at this point. But my dad and my mom are both baseball fans, but my dad is the Yankee fan. My mom is I don't call her a fair weather fan because that's not what she is. But in the time I've been alive, she's had minimum 6 different favorite teams. She picks a team for the year, and then she and my dad bet on it, and whoever has the better record at the end of the season takes the other out to dinner. So that's the kind of baseball fan she is, which good for her. So I grew up a Yankees fan. I'm in Cooperstown, but didn't know until I was in my undergrad program that they had a library or a research center or any of it, as many people don't actually know that we exist. And so the folks that make it back to us are kind of the special ones in my eyes. So as an undergrad, my dad had found the Steel Internship Program, which the Hall does every year for 10 weeks. Students from around the country apply. Only about 15 to 20 get a position at the Hall for the summer. And he told me to apply in the library because that's what I was going for as my undergrad degree as well. And that's when I first started working at the Hall, was summer of 2012. And then, I finished my 10 weeks there, stayed in touch because I went back home. And I volunteered every few months because libraries look for 2 things when they are asking for you to apply to jobs. They are asking for your experience and your schooling. So schooling I was working on, but how is anybody going to hire you if you don't have experience, if they aren't willing to give you experience? So I volunteered. And then those who know Freddie Borowski and Tim Wiles, they both left roughly the same time. And so they said to apply. So I applied and I got the job and started March 31st of 2014. So I'm coming up on 11 years being at the Hall again. So
that's fantastic. So you made mention of something just a moment ago that I think the quote was, there's not many people that know about the research center back there. My response to that is, what? Really?
Yes. So for those who have not been to the museum before, or who have and know exactly where we are, I tell folks when I go to get them at the ticket booth, if I do need to get them at the ticket booth, which is right by the front door, we are about as far from the entrance of the museum as you can get while still being on the same floor. So we are technically you're still on the first floor when you come to the research center, but we are as far back from that door as you can possibly be. That is partly because at once upon a time, the 2 buildings were separate.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had the Hall of Fame and the museum, and then you had some little bit of land, and then you had the library and the research center. And so when they combined them, that was great. It put them all on the first floor, but it does make for a quite a ways walk, but it does take you through the plaque gallery. And a lot of people think we end at the plaque gallery. They don't go any further. So they don't know that the statues exist back there. They don't know that there's a couple of other exhibits. They don't know that there's a bookstore. They don't know that there's that there's the research center. So
That's just astounding to me that there are baseball fans who don't know this research center is there, and you and your staff is there. How many do you have on staff there?
right now there is, in the library, there's 3 of us.
Okay.
We are hiring a couple of new reference librarians because we had those who knew Helen Stiles. She retired last April after being at the museum for almost 37 years. And then our other reference librarian, she went down to the archives, decided she wanted to do some archives work instead of be a librarian. So she's doing that. So hopefully up to 5 soon.
So
Soon.
shorthanded like everybody else in the world, right?
Exactly.
So you're a Yankees fan.
Yes.
That hurts my heart. It does.
It's okay. I'll take my 27 rings. Thanks.
Okay. Oh, coming in hot. Okay. In your just you win. Okay. Well, we're all set, everybody. Have a good night. No. Matt in the chat just said Bruce isn't going to recover from that one. He's probably right. So you're a Yankees fan, and you've been in the hall for 11 years. So I'm going to ask you the trite question. A lot of people would ask you if they were on the street and you had said, "Oh, I work for the hall." Have you had any experiences with those from the Yankees coming in and working with them for whatever reason on research it might be?
We have. And they've always been delightful. Not speaking from a personal standpoint, I have not a bad thing to say about any of the folks I've worked with the Yankees. Actually, one of them that does come to us frequently is a former intern, and he's a really nice guy. So
interestingly, when I was working in minor league baseball, I worked for Steinbrenner's lawyer. He owned the ball club I worked for in New Britain, Connecticut. So I used to get all the stories from the Bronx Zoo. And Golenbach nailed that book. He nailed that book.
I will say, I don't work with anybody that high up. I don't know any of the Steinbrenners, and I'm okay with that. They can just remain the owners and do their thing. And
next time we get to Cooperstown, sorry, I stepped on you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, apparently bring back facial hair as long as it's well groomed.
There you go. So. What I was going to say is next time I'm in Cooperstown, I'll take you to lunch and I'll tell you some stories.
Yes, please.
We'll sit at the Doubleday. We'll have a good laugh. So you're the director of the library there. Walk us through a typical day in the life of the library.
Okay. So the library itself is much bigger than the research center. I think is the place to start. So the research center itself functions as a reading room, a public reading room. So folks who want to see anything from the library or the archives, we pull it and then we bring it down to them or up to them, whichever way, so that they can view it. So the research center, that's how that functions. So that's people who are making, trips to come do research specifically and who have contacted us in advance. It can be folks off the floor of the museum who are visiting, who just have a question about a relative or a friend or just their first game. We get a lot of that. They can come to the research center because it is public access. And they can ask us, and we will pull what we can and we'll answer their questions the best we can. And that is typical day-to-day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. But the library itself is much bigger than that. The library takes care of all the books in the collection, which all mostly have to do with baseball of some aspect. But we also have our clippings file, which I'm sure most, if not everybody here is familiar with on some level. But they are our newspaper clippings files, and it's on we try to have one on everybody who's played at the major league level for at least one game. That is difficult and not accomplished, but we are working on it, and we're always going to be working on it. But then those clippings also include folks who didn't necessarily play baseball or didn't play at the major league level. So we're talking women players and not just the AAGPBL. We're talking presidents, umpires, managers. We're talking not just league presidents or team presidents, we're talking US presidents as well. Writers, singers, actors, anybody who's kind of had that that influence on baseball on some level. And then we have our clipping files that are not on players or people, but are on subjects and geographical locations. So where baseball's been played, that we think it makes sense to create a file for it. And that's not just here in the US, that's anywhere. So those are the files that are most requested, probably among our top things requested in the collection at all, not just the library, but also the archives. So it's taking care of those things, it's cataloging them, it's responding to those requests for those items. It is also taking in new items. So we have a library and archives acquisitions committee that meets regularly, and everything at the museum and in the collection, both museum, library, and archives, excuse me, is either donated or loaned. We don't purchase anything. It's been the case since we opened in 1939, is that we don't purchase our artifacts. So we have a committee that meets to discuss what people are very generously offering for the collection. And that's also a part of that job, is taking those contacts, putting that committee together, putting that meeting together, and making sure that we make the best choices for the collection. Is it something we already have? What kind of condition is it in? Does it help tell the story of baseball? Those sorts of things are what we're kind of looking at when we look at items for the collection.
Have you served on that committee?
I have. I currently run that committee.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
hey, there's something I just learned about you. So what are some of the things that you've seen come through that committee? This is interesting.
We actually just had one a couple weeks ago, and in the 11 years I've been there, I've never had one so strange. So this lady tells a story about how she was staying. She says she was staying in the hotel where CC Sabathia was staying when he was a rookie coming up with Cleveland, his first spring training. So down in Florida, and he received a care package from his mother, and he opened it at the desk, took what was in it, threw away the box. She then went and took the box out of the garbage and offered us the address portion of the box. Years later, because she just offered it. So that is one of the strangers. We're not taking it, by the way. But that is one of the stranger things that we've been offered that I don't know I was ever expecting.
I don't even know how to respond to that. Oh, all right. That would be a unique piece of ephemera to have in the Hall of Fame. The chat has blown up a little bit on you, my friend. Bill Nolan, who loves to needle me at times, says, "Don't pick on Yankee fans. Their team won a world championship once in the current century." Ouch. Bill, coming in hot. David Kaiser, Cassidy, and I'm not going to say the name, wants 5 bullet points on what you did last week. It's a tough crowd. Sean Moore, and before I ask this question, if you have a comment or a question for Cassidy as we're going forward this evening, this is not a formal PowerPoint, let's point to the screen presentation. This is a conversation with our friend. please, if you have a comment or a question, go down to the bottom of the screen and hit the react button. Once you hit react, you will see another button marked raise hand. Raise your hand. We will get you in line to ask questions of our friend and presenter tonight, Cassidy Lent. And oh my goodness, there we go. So, that was a mistake. My hands just went up. So, one of the questions that is in the chat is from Sean Moore. He asks, do you have any favorite donated artifacts?
I do. So when it comes to the three-dimensional side, and that's something that we are pretty specific with at the museum, is that we have our three-dimensional artifacts and then we have our two-dimensional artifacts. So my three-dimensional artifact is a piano. And I love that we have a piano because it's just such a random thing to have at the museum. But it does pertain to baseball. It belonged to Christy Mathewson. It was gifted to him when he was recovering from TB in Saranac Lake. So it's got baseballs and it's got bats and motifs and all of that. And it's a player piano. It's pretty cool. And it's my favorite piece. Again, I love that we have random things like that that still connect to baseball because that's what we try to do.
Well, that's great. Thank you. And I was wondering if you're going to say, was this the piano that Babe Ruth tossed into the Willis Pond and thereby starting the curse? But that story is even better. I love Christy Matthews stories. Thank you.
Of course.
The curse was made up. That was fictional. So that was 86 years of rotten luck. Come on. Peter Mancuso is shaking his head. He agrees with me here. I'm going to get some of the, before I get going on other things with you, Cassidy, I'm going to get some of our folks in here tonight. And I do want to make sure that we discuss the Cooperstown Symposium as well. David Kaiser, you're up on mute. Your turn. Go.
Okay. Actually, I have a specific question that will take a little while and a general question that won't take any long at all.
Okay.
Okay. I wrote a book called Epic Season, the 1948 American League Pennant Race, which concluded, as you probably remember, with the playoff between the Indians and the Red Sox, with the Indians winning in Fenway Park.
Right.
I interviewed many players at length, and one of them was Bertie Tebbetts, who was the Red Sox catcher. And we discussed Joe McCarthy's controversial decision to start Denny Galehouse in that playoff game. Actually, there's a lot of misinformation about that. Galehouse actually did not pitch disastrously. He gave up a windblown homer in the first. He retired the Indians with no problem in the second and third, at which point the score was 1-1. And then in the fourth, he gave up singles to two Hall of Famers, Lou Boudreau and Joe Gordon, and then a home run to Ken Keltner, and he was out of the game. Now, Tebbetts actually told me, and he told other people, that he had put on tape the whole story of how and why Joe McCarthy had picked Tebbetts, and he claimed that he had made arrangements for that tape to go to the Hall of Fame after he died. And he died in 1999, and I think I made one call to the Hall after that. By that time, my book was out, but I don't remember anything ever coming of that. So my first question for you is, do you know anything about such a tape? And is there some way that I could nail that down one way or the other now?
Okay. I don't. We have roughly 14,000 hours of recorded media in the collection, so I don't know them all.
Oh boy.
But two, yes, we can find that out for you.
Great.
So give me a call or shoot me an email. I'll connect you with our recorded media manager and he'll be able to search.
That opens the door to my second question, which is, do you have full broadcast recordings of past games that have never been made publicly available through the Malloy collection or whatever?
I will say half yes, half no.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm reading it now.
We do have full recordings. I don't know what we have that hasn't been made publicly available to through other means.
Okay.
Most of our collection is not digitized at this point, and recordings of games are especially not digitized on our end because we wouldn't necessarily carry the copyright to share them. So that is part of what we look at.
But again, if I asked you specifically about a game, you could tell me whether it's there or not.
We can tell you if we have it. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. The same game is at the top of my list, the 1948 playoff. Okay,
Great.
thanks. All
Yeah,
right.
of course.
Okay.
So Cassidy, Joanne in the chat says she just counted up the poems she has in her file. It's approximately 4,300. So she's asking you to clear a spot on your desk for this USB.
You got it. Done.
So that's coming. The stuff you get into in Northern New England, I'm telling you. So do you have? Here's another one of those basic trite questions, but it's always fun to ask our guests these things when we're having this style of a meeting. What is, we know you're a Yankees fan, but is there a specific era of baseball or a player that you have a great interest in or is your favorite?
So growing up, my favorite was Tino Martinez. And then once I started really working at the hall, and learning the history, it's Lou Gehrig, hands down, done. In terms of time period, I don't know that I do. And that's part of the joy of the job, is that I get to experience all the time periods and I don't have to pick a favorite. I think that each has its own place in baseball history. And we're in a really interesting part right now. But that they all tell the story. And that is part of what's great at working in the library, is that I get to experience them all. Like in April, the 19th century committee's coming. It's going to be a great time. And so I'll get to experience that. And then we have the symposium and they cover the culture part. And then it'll be summer. And so I'll have all the little leaguers coming to play tournament camps. And they'll bring in that fresh breath of air of today's game. And it's just all of it. So.
I got to say, in the early part of the summer, there's a little shindig in Dallas that we'd love to see you at.
What's happening in Dallas? Is that
goodness.
analytics, or
that is our national convention in Dallas the last week of June. So we'd love to see you there.
Dallas in June seems like not fun. Anybody with me? Okay, I see you, Dixie. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's going to be a little warm. It's my understanding the hotel has air conditioning. And we're going to a dome to watch a ball game. So, I mean, it's all good. It's all good. We're going to get to the Cooperstown Symposium in a minute, but I got a long list of people who want to talk to you, Cassidy. So I'm going to go to Matt Albertson. Matt, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Doing well. Hey, Cassidy, thanks for jumping on tonight. So my question relates to provenance when donations come up. So how important is provenance when considering a donation? If provenance is weak on the donator's side, is that something that the Hall of Fame assists with and helps guide the donator for, or is that up for the donating party to find the provenance themselves?
So we do look at it. It obviously plays a huge part. And when we look at it, we look at a couple different things. We look at the story they're telling us. Are they is it a first person, like a one-to-one to them, to the object, or is it 2, 3 further than that? Did you buy it at a yard sale? Yard sale's not great, but we've taken yard sale stuff before. Part of it also depends on the item. If you're claiming it's Babe Ruth's last home run ball at a yard sale, we're probably not going to believe you. But we're gonna let you down gently, or we're going to try and help you figure this out. But if you are saying that, you caught it and there's newspaper articles and things like that tie you to it, then that's a different story. In terms of helping them. So we don't authenticate at the museum outside of us, because it's a nonprofit museum thing where it gets iffy. So we do send folks to reputable authenticators and appraisers. That is mostly on the work of the donor, unfortunately, and that is hard. We do, my guess is we do lose a few donations that way, is that we're just not sure if you could get this checked out. And unfortunately, that's a paid service. And so a lot of folks are not willing to pay for that if we're not absolutely going to take it if it comes back and they say, sorry, what you have is actually this, a ball from 1990 and not 1910. So, but yeah, it is definitely something we look at. We actually have something that we are considering right now that we are questioning its provenance, and we are asking the donor to go back and do some looking for us because we're just not sure.
Gotcha. Just as an aside, I asked because my vintage baseball club purchased at a small auction a sign that says on it Olympic Ball Club of Philadelphia,
Okay.
which would be somewhat rare. Very few things relating to that club from 1832. So we're really looking to find out where to go to authenticate it before we even present it to the Hall of Fame. So
Okay.
I might be in touch if you have any suggestions.
Absolutely. Please do.
Next up, hang on, folks. Here she comes. Karen Holleran, you're up. Karen, unmute. How you doing?
It's me. It's
Yes.
me. And I'm a Pirates fan. So sorry about that.
And I feel for you, Karen. I do.
I know, and it's so bad, but somebody has to do it. I have a question.
Of course.
I had called you before. I'm looking for information on the modern Woodsman Park baseball
Okay.
park in Davenport, Iowa.
Okay.
Now, I was wondering if I want to get information for this, how much time would you need to have? And what would you need?
I would need, right, any information you can give us is always helpful. So if you've got, it sounds like you've got name of the ballpark and where it was, that's always helpful. If you've got roughly a time period, that also helps. And then I always ask, what is it you're looking for? Because if I just provide you with information you already have, that's not entirely helpful.
Okay,
So
well, like from 18 some to now. So it's been a
Okay.
whole bunch of different ballparks.
okay.
But I just wondered, how much time would you need if I give you information or ask a question?
It depends on the question, honestly. Some folks are just looking for a clippings file of Babe Ruth, and so we can just send it, and that's 5 minutes. Something like yours, probably an hour. But it'll depend on the day, unfortunately, and
Okay,
kind of
because
where
I
it ends
know
up
that
on the list. So
it's wondering, because sometimes when I've had students ask me questions, but I need it now. No, I don't. I need
no,
it.
I appreciate that. Yes.
So that's why I was gathering, figuring out what you would need and how much
And
time.
I recommend if you have a deadline, let us know.
Okay.
Always let us know if you have a deadline. If it's literally no rush and you're like, it could be a year later and still be interested. Great, that's good to know. But if you need it in a day, then that's also good to know, and we can prioritize as needed.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Karen, have you contacted the ballparks committee about that as well? I'm wondering if they would have some information for you that might help.
That's where I'm going next.
And were you talking about Davenport in the 1800s?
Well, it started in the 1800s.
I'd suggest the 19th century committee as well.
Okay.
And that might be another couple of avenues for you to gain some further insight. The editor of Elysian Fields' fabulous newsletter is here tonight, and he is next up, Craig Garrettson. Turn that camera on, flip that mic on. How you doing, brother?
Hello, I'm sitting here in the dark, so you can't really see me anyway.
Why are you sitting in the dark? Most people want me to be sitting in the dark on these shows.
This is great. As a researcher of obscure players, I'm wondering how much I can do online with you, and how much, like, I guess, what's the difference between me walking in and me emailing or calling? Do I have any advantage if I'm there as opposed to doing it all online?
Not really, other than you get to come to Cooperstown.
Which is great.
It seems to be an upside for most people. No, especially after COVID, and we were starting it before then, because at the very minimum, I'm understanding that we are not the easiest place to get to, and that technology is more than advanced to scan a few pages and email it. So there's really no advantage if you're looking for a few things here and there, like, again, the clippings files, or can you check this, book for this mention of something along those lines. If you're looking for more heavy duty research and you'd want us to scan an entire box of something, we would like you to come to Cooperstown, please. That would be beneficial for both you and us. That way you can see things firsthand. We're not inadvertently damaging items by scanning them that don't need to be scanned the way we would have to scan them. And then if you see something that you're like, ooh, that takes me down a different path, we can help you more immediately if you're here in town. But given that you are looking for obscure players, that is probably something we can help you with online.
Thanks.
Of course.
I want to take a second with you, Cassidy, and talk about the Cooperstown Symposium. I've known a few people who have presented there. I've never attended the symposium, and I'm not sure that many of us on this call have. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Now, you're the co-director of the Cooperstown Symposium, correct?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So the Cooperstown Symposium on Baseball and American Culture was founded actually by SUNY Oneonta, the local state school, by Al Hall, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. And they, after a couple of years, they kind of formed it with the Hall of Fame to bring it to Cooperstown. And then the Hall of Fame has used it kind of to lend credence to the academic portion of it, because it is an academic conference. So we still co-direct. It's myself and those who know Bill Simons with SUNY Oneonta. He's the other co-director, and he, I believe, has been to all of them. That is his claim. But so it is baseball and American culture, and that is what the presentations are about. So if you want to present on poetry, or you want to present on cats who have crept onto the field, you want to present on ballparks, you can present on any of these things as long as it's not baseball as baseball on the field. So we don't necessarily care that Babe Ruth hit 714 home runs. We really don't. We don't want to hear about all 714 home runs. You want to talk about Babe Ruth on who he was as an adsman, or how he helped change the player agent, tandem there. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We'd love to hear about that. So we do have a proposal committee. So every October, a call goes out for papers. People submit to the end of the year. There's a proposal committee. It's a blind read, so nobody knows who submitted what. They vote on the best ones, and those are the papers that are presented at the symposium every year. It is 3 days. It is this year, May 28th, 29th, and 30th. It's always the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday following Memorial Day. It all happens at the Hall of Fame, which is convenient. We do a keynote speaker on a Wednesday afternoon. We do the town ball game, for those who are familiar, on Thursday evening, followed by the dinner in the plaque gallery on Thursday evening. And then it goes all day Friday. And folks can come. You can be academics, you can be fans, you can be historians, you can be writers, you can be students. We really don't care as long as you come to have fun and you're nice to other people, because that we do care about. But it's a great time. So
I will tell you that there is breaking news. Gus the Saber Cat has begun his research into cats on the field and is looking to be featured in the 37th Cooperstown Symposium next year. Let's go to, and there he is. He's on camera now. Molly's going to talk in just a minute. Molly, you're up.
Of course, you got me when I had the camera turned, so I couldn't find the mic. So two things, Cassidy. Were you on the board of selecting items when the Honus Wagner card came to you guys?
no, I was not. That was there long before I was.
Okay. Do you know how you guys came about acquiring that?
I don't actually. And I think in all the years I've worked there, people have just asked me about it. They've never asked how we came to have it in our collection. So I don't know. That's an excellent question.
And Bruce and I know from personal experience with our family, but I was wondering, do people understand that your research facility also helps students, like, you know, young kids? Like, because we brought my daughter out there because she had to report on Roberto Clemente, and we went to the library and she got such a wealth of knowledge, and whoever was with her just was so wonderful and did such a nice job. And she was little, and they spent the time with her to do all that.
That's nice. We do get kids for sure. I don't know how many teachers or parents know about us. There's a few for sure, because we do get school visits, and I do get emails from teachers saying, hi, we're doing National History Day, or we're doing a history project, or we're doing a wax museum thing, and need information. But I think what many people at the museum think is that while we are an educational institution, people see us as sport first. And so they assume we don't exist. They assume all we have are bats and balls and gloves, and that we are just honestly, they think we're just the plaque gallery. And so they don't come to us.
It's amazing to me.
I will tell you, when COVID happened, before the kids' schools were up and running remotely, the education department for the Hall of Fame was my lifesaver. And
they kicked
we were
butt.
doing
Yeah,
geometry, we were doing history, we were doing everything.
Yeah,
and
they did a great job.
Mo Willem's art class on YouTube was also a saver.
That's awesome. I will let them know, because I know they put their heart and soul, and they kicked butt when we were closed, and they were like, well, what do we do to do things?
They came out with amazing stuff. Like, you were really, as a parent, I mean, yes, I am a teacher, but I was also I had both roles.
Right. You're also a parent. Yeah.
So we were trying to figure out how to be up and running. And I also had kids at home running around.
Yeah.
And Bruce was in the basement trying to sell furniture remotely. So like it was very interesting, to say the least. But having the ability to get onto the Hall of Fame's website and do those lessons with them to keep them engaged was just amazing.
Great. That's awesome. I can't wait to tell them. They're going to be thrilled. So
yeah. And we know Bruce.
Oh, do you? Okay.
We do.
Yeah. Bruce is good people.
Isn't he though?
Yeah.
Yep. So you've mentioned the archive several times this evening. Yes. So I'm going to ask you, you've obviously been down there. You've obviously worked down there. What are some of the favorite pieces that you've seen with your own two eyes?
Okay. So one of my favorite pieces is we have a rather large collection of scrapbooks And some of them are not great. They are sadly made, and condition isn't awesome, but a few of them are gorgeous. And one of them is Lou Gehrig's scrapbooks that were made by his wife, Eleanor.
Oh, I think I just read about these.
And so when she passed, I believe the estate donated them to the museum. And we later on had them conserved. So what came as 2 volumes of what were still beautiful, like they were in a little sorry shape, but they were still pretty nice based on the photographs I've seen. Made them into 4 volumes that are just beautiful, and you can tell they are a look back into a time when scrapbooking was a thing, in a way that it just isn't now. It allowed us access to New York City baseball at a time when we didn't have digitized newspapers. All we had really access to were probably the Times, and whatever we had in the clipping files. This was a look into this very specific part of history, and obviously it's a look into his life because it goes on. It starts before they're married, and then it continues after he passes. So you see some of the work that she did. And another one of those scrapbooks, so we've had a few of them conserved that way. The Babe Ruth scrapbooks are another one. I find those less interesting only because Eleanor made Lou's, and you can just tell that the love is there. But another one that we had conserved is for Manley's, and hers is really neat. It is hers and about her, so heck yeah, and what she was doing at the time. She is just an incredible woman in history, and right. I'm not surprised that it took us so long to induct her. I am sad it took us so long to induct her because she should have been inducted a long time ago. But she is just an incredible figure, and that scrapbook is just beautiful. Like she, it obviously talks about baseball, but it also talks about her own, what she was doing. So she was involved in civil rights movements, and she cared about her players' lives and all of that. And so it's in there in that scrapbook. But another piece we have is in our recorded media archives, and it's an Edison cylinder. So I don't know who in the crowd is familiar with an Edison cylinder, but they're really very fragile. So we have 2 in the collection, and one is complete and we can't play it because we have nothing to play it on. But the other one is broken to show baby archivists and librarians what not to do with an Edison cylinder. It can't, if my memory is correct from what I was told, we had the broken one first, and we took it because we didn't have one in the collection, and we didn't know if we'd ever get one in the collection. So we took that one, and then we were offered a full, not broken, by the looks of it, pristine Edison cylinder. And so we use the other one as an example piece of what not to do. And we have a few of items like that in the collection where we use them for interns to see. We use them for care and conservation workshops where we're like, okay, here's what you do. Here's what you don't do. Don't break your Edison cylinder because you're not getting it back. So those are a couple of the items in the collection that are pretty neat.
Interesting stuff. Hey, Paul Hensler, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Bruce. Thank you so much for having me on. And Cassidy, it's great to see you.
Hi, Paul.
Hi. My head's spinning with different things to talk about here, but I'm just going to mention one thing quickly. For the veteran researchers, this is old hat, but for anybody who wants encouragement to deal with the library at the Hall of Fame, just to share my COVID experience. 5 years ago, almost to the day now, as the clouds of COVID were getting darker and darker, I was trying to get some material to try to finish the book I was working on at that point. And the state of New York announced that things were really going to be starting to shut down. And Cassidy, probably on your last working day in the office before the real shutdown, went across the street to the post office in Cooperstown and mailed me a very thick envelope of material that I was scheduled to get myself the following week. So if you need any encouragement for the level of service that's provided by the staff there, that's certainly it. My real story, and this is one of my most enduring moments of being at the Hall of Fame. I was at a research trip there, I guess it was last February or so. I'm sure exactly when, but I think it was my next to the last day. Cassidy says to me, "Would you mind being part of a photo shoot that we're doing for some publicity stuff?" And you're smiling and shaking your head, so you know. And I'm working at the copy machine. I've got my books and team publications, and I'm frantically copying all this stuff because I really had a big research request list. And during the course of the day, this utility cart goes by me with these things that are kind of cloaked in this black velvet. And I'm not paying attention, but all this stuff is being channeled into a little interior room. If you've been to the Giamatti Center, those of you will know what I'm talking about. And about 2 o'clock, I get the prompt saying, "Okay, they're ready to do the photo shoot." I go into the room, and on this table are the spikes that Tom Seaver wore when he struck out 10 consecutive San Diego Padres in 1970. There are 2 mini mannequins, one of which has Ted Williams' home jersey from 1946, I think it was, the road jersey that Lou Gehrig wore in his final year that he played, the cap that Roberto Clemente wore in the last game that he played when he got his 3,000th hit. It's just unbelievable, the artifacts. That I walk in there, I'm still picking my jaw up off the floor to this day, Cassidy. And I took a bunch of pictures and I showed them to people. I said, I didn't get the whole Clemente's camp, but it was right there. I got the whole Willie Mays' bat that he set the national league record for home runs. This was just completely out of the blue that I just happened to be there on the day that this photo shoot was taking place. And that's probably my most enduring memory of being at the Hall of Fame. But again, Cassidy, thank you so much for all the work that you do, not just for the veterans, but for the newcomers who want to learn more about this wonderful game.
Of course. And right, Paul, you're telling me the story from COVID, and I remember standing at the copier and Jim Gates coming down and saying, "You need to leave." And I said, "No, I can't. I gotta finish this." And he was not happy. I go, "But it's for Paul." And he goes, "Okay, you got an hour." I said, "Okay, got an hour." Great, go away. I gotta work.
That photocopier hasn't recovered yet, has it?
We got a new one.
Oh, good.
For those not familiar, I know Jim a little bit too, so that's why I was caught a little bit of latitude there. I did not know that, Cass, but thanks for that background information.
I've said this many times on our in our meetings. I'm not a researcher by any stretch of the imagination, but I love listening to these stories. They're fantastic. Let's go to Dixie Tarango. Dixie, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing fine. Cassidy, you know where I stand. I'm the one who coined the term Saint Cassidy of Lent.
Thank you, Dixie.
A frightening personal thought is that I sat in that Hall of Fame library in the mid-1980s when the only 2 people in there were Cliff Cackline, who recruited me for SABR, me, and wall-to-wall clutter of baseball history. I remember that Cliff went out once or twice to do something. I was the only person there, so I actually answered the phone. Anyway, my question is, we've had 50 people online tonight on the screen, which might be the record for the Soup for a chapter. But my question is, most of the people online here can't imagine what kind of calls you get on an hourly basis there. I want to know what kind of calls kind of set you back, put you in your chair, and maybe roll your eyes a little bit after the call is over. What crazy stories do you have about those?
So I've got 2. One from when I first started. It comes from when I was an intern, actually, and then one that just happened last week. So the first one is the intern story. So I was there as an intern. We got an email, not a call, but an email from a lady looking for information on a minor league player who did maybe 2 years in the minors in the early 1910s. And so I send her what Baseball Reference has, which isn't much. We don't have anything. I do some newspaper searching, can't find anything, and send it along. And she goes, well, I'm sure you're wondering why I'm asking. And at that point, I was like, sure. Tell me. She believed he was a ghost in her house. And that he was talking to her, her daughter, and her husband to see, to help him pass over, essentially. And so she was trying to figure out how he died and why their house. So I'm never able to find any other information for her. I give it to Tim Wiles to take care of, said, if she contacts you, here you go. She never contacts him. He can't find anything. It is years later. She comes in to the research center one summer and goes, and I run into her and I say, hi, can I help you? She goes, I just wanted to see, I emailed you all a few years back about this. I'm sure it wasn't you. She's telling me the story. I said, it was me. I said, did you ever find out? And she goes, yeah. So they believe that he broke that their house was an old boarding house by the railroad station, and that he broke his leg coming off a train at some point, and that's why he had to stop playing. And so they eventually moved out. They didn't live there anymore at that point, but yeah. So ghost stories number one. And then number two is we had a gentleman walk in last week, ask 3 questions. And the third question was about Abner Doubleday. And I said, well, obviously, he did not invent baseball. We hold to this. So he goes, yeah. But there's an Army report from 1862, I think he said, that claims that Abner Doubleday helped codify rules for baseball. And so, because it was last week, I haven't been able to talk to anybody but you all, actually. It's because I think it was Friday. In that Abner Doubleday was with his regiment, brigade, something, Army terms are not my thing. But that they were arguing over essentially foul territory. And so he said, okay, anything, and there was a river or stream that went through wherever they were, and that anything to the left of it was fair and anything to the right of it was foul. It's like, this cannot be true. So now that is my hunt, to figure out if this, in the 11 years that I worked there, where we talk about Abner Doubleday, and that the only time he mentions baseball in any writings is that he asks for supplies for morale. I've never heard this. So that is my current hunt.
You have got to do me a favor.
Sure.
When you get an answer to that, you've got to come back on.
Okay, you got it.
Okay. Because, yeah. We'll have you on just for that. We'll do another hour and a half. It'll be great. There's still more questions. Ryan McClanahan. Unmute, brother. You're up. How you doing?
Good. This
Get
is
'em.
awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. So back in 1999 or so, one of the curators, Ted something, I forget his last name.
Ted Spencer.
Yes, that's it. He was telling me that he found the original Mills report from like 1907 in the very bottom of a box. That was, I guess, the contents in it were like a player who played in like the 19th century. Do you guys have that report that we can look at, peruse?
Absolutely. Yep. We do
Okay.
have the Mills report in the collection, and you can absolutely request to see it.
Awesome. And secondly, has Paul Giamatti ever come and visit?
My understanding is no. If he has, it was before I worked there.
Okay.
And yes, for folks who don't know, the Giamatti Center is named after Bart Giamatti and his dad.
Cool.
So.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
Still more hands up, but I want to get in a question that just popped into my head. You've lived in Cooperstown for several years now.
Mm-hmm.
What are your favorite things about my favorite little burg, or what are some of the secret things, for lack of better term, that a tourist might not know about when they come to town?
Don't plan on eating between 12 and 1 on Main Street during the summer, because you're not going to. Come now. It's quiet. I know a lot of shops are closed and a couple of the rest, like Doubleday's not open. I know that's a deal breaker for a lot of folks, and I understand that. But it's if you want the museum to yourself and you want the village to yourself, this is the perfect time. And low rates.
Yes.
So those are my tips for winter. In the summer, if you're gonna come, or like the nicer weather, try to do spring fall. You'll still have some crowds, but you'll also have nice weather. More things will be open. And then in the summer, where the museum's open till 7, and it tends to kind of file out after 5. So between 5 and 7, it's not a bad time to be at the museum. And then in terms of the village itself, and surrounding areas, the lake gets a lot of love for a lot of good reasons, and it's all deserved. So if you are a swimmer, if you are a fisher or boater or sunbather, I'm not gonna judge. There are like 3 or 4 different beaches. Most tourists go to Glimmerglass State Park because, one, there's more to do because you can go hiking and all those sorts of things. But it is the place that comes up. But there are several other places along the west side of the lake that are just as nice, and a little quieter.
Cassidy, I hope you've got nothing to do, because the questions just keep coming. Buckle up.
That's
Douglas,
fine. I'll pick up tomorrow off.
Oh, perfect. There you go. Douglas Amok, you're up. Doug, how you doing?
Good. Thank you, Cassidy, for this question and answer period. Much appreciated. So that was what you were just talking about, was what I was going to ask about. What's the best time to do research? Is it still the same thing?
It is.
Okay.
So what I recommend, it all depends on the type of researcher you are.
Okay.
If
it's
you need
more manuscripts.
And that's fine. I mean,
Okay.
like you as a person.
Okay.
I'll put on my like interviewing person hat right now. If you are a person who does well with like almost absolute silence, or the research center to themselves, more or less, and no walk-ins, then yes, winter is the time you want to come. There are days I see nobody beyond staff, and there are also days I don't see staff. So, if you are okay with a little bit, like you don't want to do the whole winter, is it going to snow? Is it going to sleet? Is it going to be 50? Because God knows anymore. Spring, fall, you'll still get a quieter research center, but you'll also more likely get nicer weather, or at least not snow. Summer, the museum's jam-packed. We'll see more walk-ins, so it'll be a little bit louder, things like that. So depends on who you are as a researcher.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
Jeff Cohen, you're up.
Thanks, Bruce, and thanks, Cassie, for doing this. I just want to attest to what Cassie said. I've been to the Hall of Fame. I believe it was late January, early March, and there was nobody there. And I remember a docent named Roger, don't know his last name, and he took us all around, and he actually took us down to the archives. Now, we weren't allowed in the archives, but he did bring stuff out for us to see. It was so cool. And, we went to the museum, and we had a personal tour the whole time. So it was just a great time to go. I also want to thank her, because when I went to the library with my son, I'm a big Tom Seaver fan, and you were nice enough to give me the photocopy of his scouting report signed by Tommy Lasorda. I thought that was pretty cool. I still have that in my collection. So I don't have any questions, but like I said, thank you. And like I said earlier before we started recording, I see your name in every book I read.
Well, thank you. My pleasure.
All right, Cassidy. So tell the viewers, tell us here on our meeting tonight, how can we get in touch with you?
Of course. So you can call us, you can email us. I do still have some pen pals, so you can write us a letter. All contact information is on the website, but I can also, I think Bruce has it, or I can send it along. And that way you can contact us with your heart's desire and we'll see what we can do. Yeah.
You can go to the website and get all the contact information you need. If you have any questions on how to get in touch with Cassidy Lent, please get a hold of me at bruce@brucemclordnh.com, and I'll be happy to connect you to the patron saint of baseball research, Cassidy Lent. That you're blushing. I see that. I did it. I did it. That's payback. Oh, this has been one of the most fun we've had since we started this a couple of years ago. This has been fantastic. All right. We are back Monday, March 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern with SABR member who's here tonight, Jack Bales. Jack, unmute for a second.
Hi, everybody. Yeah.
Tell us what you're doing Monday night, brother.
Well, as some of the people of the 19th Century Committee know, I was talking to John Thorne at a convention, and I asked him about Lewis Meacham, who happened to be William Hubbard's right-hand man, and he said not many people knew about him, and so I made it sort of a goal to find out as much as I could about him. He had 2 names, 2 records in the Civil War. He had 2 entries in Find a Grave. The entries in Baseball Reference, there were 2 of those. They were both wrong. Entries in baseball, the retro sheet were all wrong, and so I kind of did lots and lots and lots of digging, and finally, as Peter Mancuso and Bob Bailey know, I finally came across a really cohesive record of his life, wrote about it in a bio project, and I'll be talking about my research and how I put all these really puzzling questions and solved them all, and just kind of how it all came about and what it all revealed too.
Thanks for that, Jack. We appreciate that. We will see you Monday night at 7 p.m. The link to sign up is in the SABR events calendar at sabr.org/events. And it's also available in the chapter meeting booklet that is sent out in our Monday message newsletter each week. For those who are on the list to get the join the meeting email automatically, you will get that email over this coming weekend. And finally, if you're a baseball fan watching on YouTube and you like what you see, please like this video and subscribe to our channel to be alerted to each of our weekly uploads. And if you are not yet a member, you need to join the Society for American Baseball Research, the premier baseball community. Offering an amazing baseball buffet of options to explore your fandom, SABR boasts more than 35 different research communities, over 80 regional chapters, and innumerable opportunities to connect with baseball minds across the world, just like Cassidy Lent. For more information, go to sabr.org today. Cassidy Lent, you are one of SABR's finest. You're a bright light in this organization. Thank you so much for doing this evening.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, everybody.
I appreciate you.
Thank
We're going
you.
to get everybody out of here, and we're going to see everybody next week. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.